The cow's testimony Radha Kund case's grandmother cow inured newborn Gobind Godham birth of a calf Moan in meditation birth of a calf a newborn calf, only a few minutes old, is groomed by mom first sign that birth may be within the hour first popping out his tiny yellow hoof, then nose, the calf is delivery by CFC carer Syama Hari clearing the mouth and nostrils of mucus to aid taking that first breath. The birth of a calf is always a joyous occasion and luckily at CFC all usually goes well for both the mother cow and her calf during and after the delivery. Some admissions arrive at CFC already pregnant and in many cases their secret is kept right up until a few days before they give birth. Such was the case recently with Kanchana, who joined CFC late last year with an advanced eye injury which resulted in her losing the eye. By mid-March Kanchana was showing and Dr. Lavanya confirmed by a pregnancy examination that she was about 6 months. A few days later Kanchana was sitting out in the front yard and would not stand up to take her lunchtime meal, and it was soon discovered why. She was about to give birth. Understanding that the calf would be premature, there was tension in the air as all eyes were fixed on the bag of fluid that was already expelled and laid unbroken on the ground. Then the first sign of life, a tiny, yellow hoof popped out into the bag of fluid and then disappeared back inside. This continued for some minutes and finally the unborn calf's nose also appeared, and when it was clear that there was no going back, Syama Hari assisted the delivery by cleaning up before seeing mom catching hold of the calf's 2 front legs and pulling out. The calf slipped and within seconds it was in direct touch with the sacred dust of Vrindavan. Immediately the calf's mouth and nostrils were cleared of mucus to aid respiration. The umbilical cord was cut, and the newborn was then cleaned up before being handed over to mom with the happy announcement it's a boy. Though the calf was approximately 1 month premature, he was able to stand assisted at 1 hour old and quickly mastered the art of how to drink milk. As Kanchana is old, her milk was less in quantity, so her calf, named Svarna, Gold, was fed additional baby bottles of milk supplied by other mothers at CFC. He continues to improve in strength, and though still thin and wobbly he runs like the wind and is happy investigating his new surroundings and being greeted by all the other cow residents and human guests at CFC. 12 days old, Svarna explores his surroundings. Homeopathic remedies for calving difficulties: Cantharus, expels dead fetus caulifillum, retained placenta Olatris formosa, prolapse arnica montana, bruising of tissues after giving birth Bellisperinus, for bruising after a difficult birth or delivery of a large calf Conium mac, recumbency after giving birth, Downer cow, Sabina, retained fetal membrane Cicuta virosa, hypocalcemia milk fever calc phos, calcium deficiency pre-calving. Injured newborn. Early in March a very young outpatient calf was brought into CFC for urgent surgery after losing his back left leg. First reports of how the calf lost his leg were that a dog was responsible for chewing it off. However, when the doctor examined the injury he denied this could actually be the case. It was suspected someone accidentally hurt the calf's leg, which resulted in the tragic loss, and tried to cover over his mistake. The calf was born at a dairy at Radha Kund, and when news of his condition reached Sudevi, she agreed to give him a home and arrange for his medical treatment. After Dr. Lavanya examined the injury, he prepared for surgery as the exposed bone needed to be removed. Once the surgery was complete, the doctor dressed the wound and explained that new tissue would cover over the bone, and he was hopeful of a relatively smooth recovery as the patient is young, otherwise healthy, and growing fast. How such a very young calf lost his leg remains a mystery. The protruding bone is cut back with a wire saw. Sharp bone ends are rounded back so as not to cause injury to the tissue. Dr. Lavanya dresses Giriraj's wound. Final bandage is wrapped on his stump. The little calf was a wonderful patient, and when Sudevi embraced him he stretched his long neck and licked her chin, which won everyone's heart. When Sudevi was asked if the dairy would supply the calves drinking milk, she laughed and said, "Of course not. Milk is expensive in India and they would be happy that they don't have to give any more milk for his maintenance, so they can sell it and make money." Such is the sorry state of Goseva in India today. Sudevi has alternately arranged for the calf to nurse from one of her cows, who supplies milk to her own calf and other orphans. After his brief visit to CFC for medical treatment, the calf was carefully bundled up and taken back home with Sudevi, who continues his daily wound cleaning and dressing. He is recuperating well and has been named Giriraj. Sudebai embraces Giriraj after his surgery. Shamali at 32. Shyamali great-great-great-grandmother. Almost 40 years ago Kartika Baba and his disciple left Kolkata to move to Vrindavan. Among their few possessions was Shamali and her first calf. They understood that Goseva pleases Lord Krishna, so they treated Shamali with great respect. They lived very humbly, fed Shamali well and kept her living area always clean. In the following years Shamali bore a calf almost every year, and the maiden Gopal Goshala developed from her offspring. Today it is maintained by several members of the Vaishya community who are dedicated to maintaining the present herd of 90. Though the natural lifespan of a cow is an average of 20 years, Shamali lived to the ripe old age of 34 and bore a total of 30 calves in her life. 2 years ago she passed away, and Kartika Baba organized a funeral procession with Kirtana in her honor. They transported her body through the main streets of Vrindavan while many devotees loudly chanted the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra with karatalas and mridanga. Today her remains lay in a small samadhi in the main courtyard of the Goshala, and pictures of her decorate the walls. The maiden Gopal Goshala is a place where genuine service is offered to the cows by Vaisnavas who regard them as their mother. Kartika Baba, center, steadies Shamali while his disciple garlands her. Shamali dressed up for Gopastamaya, the funeral procession. The stone on Shamali's Samadhi FMOUSCOUSOFBRINDAVAN. In March the CFC medical team again joined Dr. Lavanya on his monthly visit to Surabhai Goshala in Radhakund. Sudebai had since the previous visit rescued 25 more calves from the street. Of those new residents, some suffered fractured legs, dog bites, and open wounds. Dr. Lavanya made a quick check over the new cases, treated those requiring further medical attention, and then checked on the progress of the previous month's patients. Rohini, who had an amputated front leg, required surgery to remove an inch of bone so the tissue could close over the stump. Otherwise she is progressing well. Laxmi also required further surgery to remove exposed bone and several bone fragments from her open leg wound. Though her wound is gradually healing, she is weak and her morale is low. Radhakund cases: Murari recuperating from a fractured leg. Laxmi is stood supported in a makeshift sling. Dr. Lavanya examines the wound, removing more bone from the old fracture site, cutting bone with a wire saw. Further surgery. Sudebai dresses Laxmi's wound. Laxmi is stood supported in a makeshift sling. Dr. Lavanya examines the wound, removing more bone from the old fracture site, cutting bone with a wire saw. Further surgery. Sudebai dresses Laxmi's wound. Surgery on Ganeshyama's leg. Dr. Lavanya flushes the wound with diluted iodine through a syringe. Ganesyama is served a bowl of fresh salad greens. Though under a year old, Ganesyama had suffered 2 major injuries, one leaving him lame in one back leg and recently a fractured joint in his left front leg, which left him in a lot of pain and he could no longer stand. Found in this condition on the street, he was brought in for medical care. Dr. Lavanya cleaned the contaminated open wound and performed a small operation. Ganesyama was stood supported in the calf sling every day and his wound cleaned, but soon after, on an Ekadasi morning, he gave up his battle and left his body. Gobind Godham is a well-known charitable trust dedicated to cow protection in Ludhiana, Punjab, established and managed by several prominent businessmen. They have taken more than 1,800 cows off the streets and are maintaining them in a 5-star facility on the outskirts of the prosperous city. 1 year ago, 2 of the trustees, Sri S.D. Damaja and Sri Satish Gupta, came to Vrindavan in search for land to establish a Vrindavan branch of Gobind Godham. They invited 2 representatives of Care for Cows to visit their facility in Punjab and requested them to assist with their Vrindavan branch. In the months that followed, Gobind Godham made an alliance with the Panchayati Goshala of Vrindavan, and together they have begun the construction of 23 cow sheds which will each host 130 cows on a 10-acre plot in Akrargaon, just off the Vrindavan Mathura road near the Pagal Baba Mandir. Swami Krishnananda is providing inspiration and spiritual direction for the project and is establishing a curtain mandala near the 2 cow sheds which are already completed. He plans to reside at the facility much of the time to assure that the standard of care meets with their Ludhiana branch. At present they have collected more than 180 Gobind Swami Krishnananda cows from the streets of Vrindavan and will provide a place for at least 3,000. Their goal is to get all the abandoned cows off the streets of Brindavan and acquire more land if necessary. The facility in Akrargao will have a hospital for the cows and a kitchen and Godham residence facility for the medical staff and cowherd men. Left, Dr. Upadhyaya and staff members attend to new admissions. Above and right, some of the abandoned cows, calves, and bulls get adjusted to their new home. Horn cancer. Buktilata's condition on arrival at CFC. Horn core carcinoma develops in both horned and dehorned breeds and is especially common in India. If caught at an early stage, successful treatment is possible through surgical removal of the horn and tumor. In Buktilata's case, one horn had become soft on the underside and developed into a large tumor which was bothered by flies and had become maggot infested. As her condition deteriorated, her owner waited until she was unproductive before approaching CFC to take the cow and her 6-month-old calf. It was evident that she had been neglected for a long time and she suffered hair loss to an extensive area of her face from a buildup of dry blood. During the first wound cleaning on the morning of her arrival at CFC, necrotic tissue, thin layers of horn and maggots were removed from the growth. Dr. Lavanya was called to examine the cow and confirmed she suffered from horn cancer. He first wound cleaning, which removed necrotic tissue, thin layers of horn and maggots. Buktilata in her last days, spent at CFC, an early departure with little suffering, said her chances were 50-50 at this stage and he would know more once he performed the surgery to remove the tumor and horn. Her surgery was scheduled for early April, a week after her arrival at CFC, but she suddenly passed away on the afternoon of March 30th. Buktilata was placed in Samadhi that afternoon and offered incense, Ganges water, maha flowers, garlands, and a Harinama chatter. Many calves ran and danced around the Samadhi site during the worship ceremony, which was taken as an auspicious sign. All were relieved that Buktilata's suffering was brief. Our service to Buktilata will be continued by caring for Bhaktibija, her 6-month-old bull calf. Buktilata's bull calf named Bhaktibija. False evidence in the attempt to prove the cows belonged to them. The police then asked Govinda Das to prove that the cows belonged to him. He pointed at his cows and said, "They are my only proof. Only they can testify that they belong to me." Upon hearing this, all the people in the market began to laugh. "How can they testify if they cannot speak?" they asked. The sub-collector asked Govinda Das, "You say these cows are yours, but what is the proof they belong to you?" The Shastras declare that the cows of the universe belong to the Tapasvis and Brahmanas. Govinda Das replied. The sub-collector responded, "That type of proof applies in Dvaparayuga but not in this age. Do you have any documents to prove these cows belong to you?" "No, I don't," Govinda Das solemnly replied. "If after I call them, they come to me and show affection, will you then believe they belong to me?" The sub-collector and his staff agreed, so Govinda Das began to call the cows by name: Ganga, Goda, Yamuna, Krishna, Savitri, "Oh my mothers, please come." Hearing their master call, they broke free and ran to lick him lovingly. Seeing this, the villagers and even the butchers were surprised. The cows then followed Govinda Das back to the ashrama and went to their respective rooms. Since then Govinda Das has always protected his cows from getting stolen. The cow's testimony: in a village named Kazur Saramba there lived a great devotee of cows named Govinda Das Maharaja. All the rooms of his ashrama except for his sitting and bedroom, were used by his cows and he would spend his days happily serving them. Once a number of his cows were lost and he reported this to the office of the sub-collector. They discovered that some butchers had gathered them in the nearby Belver market. He informed the police, who questioned the butchers, who presented an excerpt from Go Seva Kamatkar, Jita Press. Farewell Samhu passed away at 9:45 p.m. March 30th. See the CFC March news for his full story. Life in the streets while competing for stale chapatis in the garbage dump. A dog tore my left ear. It hurt, but I was so hungry I could not help but return. The second time he took almost half of my right ear. We are not meant to compete with them. Join forces in the growing campaign to provide adequate homes for the many abandoned cows in Krishna's holy land. Sponsor a cow, feed the herd for a day, or donate to the Care for Cows Land Fund. Give US shelter care for cows INVRINDAVAN inspired by AC. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya International Society for Krishna Consciousness. The cows send their heartfelt thanks to those who assisted during March 2007. Alessandra Petrassi, Italy. Amy Bardsley, USA. Anada Dasi, India. Anonymous, Singapore. Bronco Burrow, Croatia. Devi Sakti Dasi, India. David Thornton, USA. Dhruva Maharaja Dasa, India. Dina Sarana Dasa, USA. Donia Salem, USA. Hendrika Hartsuger, Belgium. James Carvalho, USA. Jennifer Olson, USA. John Perdue, USA. Jurgen Jensen, USA. Katyayani Dasi, USA. Laxman Pujari, India. Mahas Ringa Dasa, India. Maria Laser, USA. Mariana Polonsky, USA. Meena Patel, India. Padma Samhava Dasa, NZ. Paul Coates, USA. Pradipta Chatterjee, USA. Radha Karan, Krishna Mai, India. Radha Jivan Dasa, India. Rams Entertainment, USA. Ryan Coe and JB Harry, SA. Richard Boyden, USA. Samuel M. Walker, USA. Shirley Prince, USA. Sophie Rubinstein, USA. Sri Hari Dasa, India. Stella Herzig, USA. Swan Ng, UK. Susan Hopgood, UK. Swayam Prakash Krishnamurti, USA. Tom Cotter, USA. Vananath Dasa, USA. Varun Janeja, UK. Vicky Moreland, USA. Yamuna Dasa, India.